form. The state statute, Title 63, 2864, basically outlines the power and duties of the 911 Management Authority. If you look at number 7 under that, it says require an annual report for public agencies regarding operations and financing of their public safety answering point and approve, modify, or reject such reports. Last year, we basically approved or accepted, I don't want to say approved, but we accepted all the reports that were provided. There was a lot of missing data within those reports. There was a lot of guessing that went on within those reports. And so this year, we're going to try to do a little more due diligence to ensure that the information is accurate, and we may request you to modify, and we may actually reject the reports if they do not have adequate information in it. Now, we do understand that certain 911 systems do not have a reporting solution with them that will break out all the various components that we ask for. However, if you can do the best you can and at least give us numbers and do not give us about 20, somewhere over 100, maybe 2 or 3, we need answers like that. We need either we don't know or it's all included in our primary number. So we have to do more due diligence to get us accurate information as it relates to that. Also, under the power duties, the state statute says that we should provide a clearinghouse of contact information for communication service companies and PSAPs that operate in the state. And you will see that that's form number 1, is for us to be able to have that statewide repository of contact information. Now, also, we are required as a state to fill out an FCC report. In that FCC report, it asks for certain things that we need from you. They ask for the types of PSAPs, the number of calls, where do the 911 fees go, did the 911 fee fund call taker or dispatcher positions? They want to know how many positions were funded by the 911 fee. So we're asking that question this year in form number 2. It's going to ask you how many positions were funded by the 911 fee. That's the 911 fee and not general fund money. It's, if the fee pays for a certain dollar amount of your operations, then however many positions that would pay for would need to be answered in that section. And we'll get to that shortly. And they also ask for state oversight and what do we do to make sure that you guys are in compliance. Along with this, I want to let everyone know that the FCC is working with the federal legislation, or working on federal legislation to basically, the federal government is going to mandate that the FCC come up with rules on how 911 fee money can be spent and where it can be spent, what it can be spent on. What they're trying to stop is diversion. They're trying to stop people from taking money out of the 911 accounts and paying for things that are not 911 related. So just be aware that the federal government is starting to take action as it relates to 911 fees, and they're going to expect us to be a little more transparent as it comes to the way that we report to the federal government. Why is that important? We've been put on notice that there'll be $2 million available this year from a federal grant to the state of Oklahoma, and that could be more later. And they also finally came out with a Next Gen 911 cost estimate, and that cost estimate is between $9 and $16 billion. B as in boy, billion dollars. And that has now been made available to the legislators, and I anticipate that they will be seeking funding to help fund that. So it may be $2 million this year, but I anticipate that additional federal dollars will be coming down the pike, and we have got to report to them accurately, and we also have to ensure that the 911 fees are being spent for 911 and not something else. The state statute, in the state statute, there's 4 things that are required of you in order to keep your funds from being escrowed. This is in Title 63, 2864-4. And you can see there, under item C, it says submit annual reports or audits as required by this act. So going back, if we go back a few slides, you can see where it says that we can approve, modify, or reject such reports. And then we come down to, if you don't do it and submit and do the things required by this act, then your money will be escrowed. Last year, it took us 8 months to finally get all of the registration forms completed and sent in. We had to send letters to certain PSAPs because they failed to submit the report. And unfortunately, we had to be put in a position where we had to threaten escrowing funds because they did not comply. We do not want to do that this year. We do not want to be put in that position. It's uncomfortable for everybody. So be very cautious and conscious of the expiration or the time this report is due, which is March 1st. And please meet that or make contact with our office and keep us informed of the status and call and ask for help and all of those type of things. I anticipate that those that do not submit by March 1st, a list will be provided immediately during the March meeting to the 911 Management Authority, and I will be requesting action to be taken at that time. I'm not sure what action they'll take, but we don't want to delay this like we did last year. All right, moving along. The Administrative Committee, this the registration form falls into the overview by the Administrative Committee, and you can see under the mission statement of the Administrative Committee, it's highlighted in the center. This includes the setting of requirements for PSAPs for the annual reporting of financial information. On the Administrative Committee, the chair now is Daryl Maggard, and you can see there in front of you the remaining people that make up the Administrative Committee, which is who vetted out this the 3 forms that you're being requested to fill out. Some resources. You can visit our webpage at ok.gov/911. Obviously, you were able to find that because you joined this webinar. But you can go to that webpage and you can find the state statute. So if you hover, or if you go over to transparency, you'll be able to find the wireline and wireless statute. And you can pull those statutes up and read the requirements for yourself. You'll also see a frequently asked questions or a fact sheet there. And you'll also see PDF copies of the forms. Obviously, PDF copies of the forms are important because we need to be able to, you need to be able to forward those to different people, make copies of them, send them to various different people that may be able to answer questions that you can't answer without actually giving them a copy of the form that they would potentially fill out. So with that said, I want to jump over to the to our webpage and share my screen. Is that where I'm going to go? Yep. Share my screen. Did that work? It's working? All right. So if you go over to our webpage, you can see this transparency and rules. If I was to click on that, you can see the wireless wireline authority rules and proposed rules if we have any, but we don't. Right now we're operating under the past rule, or the rules that were passed in 2018. So you can get to the information right in front, right here, and you can find out what's going on with that. Obviously, you can get to our meetings. You can get to our the archives of our meetings and the different download packets and things like that. So with that, on our main page, and we'll keep this up through March 1st, but on our main page, you're going to see Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, the fact sheet, and then today's webinar, which is where you went to before. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Part 1 and go through that. Well, before I go any further, does anybody have any questions so far? And you may be muted, and if you are, you have to unmute your microphone. If there's no questions, I'll move on.
Anybody have the name up there?
Okay, so this is a Form 1. This is, I believe, it's identical to what we sent out last year. So this is the first section of the report from last year. So, contacts, who's filling out this form, who's the main contact, who's the management contact for the 911 center, operations dispatch, financial contact, and et cetera. With that, you may not have people that fulfill all these different positions. If you don't, then probably your primary contact would be put into those positions. So the idea behind this is, who do we contact as it relates to the particular subtopic? Financial contact officer, well, who is that? Who would we contact? Not including in that is, if a financial person from another city calls and says, hey, we're set up this way, we have questions, there's money that's being receipted in, we don't know exactly how to do this, then what we can do is we can use this information to find like type systems around the state that are set up similarly, and we can put a financial officer in touch with another financial officer to ask those particular questions. So with that said, I'm not going to linger on this. It's basic contact information. I'll go ahead and open up the floor to see if you have any questions related to Form 1. All right. Part 2. This has been revamped somewhat. There's been some additions to this. And so I'm going to go down through this form and hit some of the highlights. One change that we had from last year: what type of governing body or agency oversees 911 wireless funding? So who actually oversees the 911 wireless funding? What organization oversees that? And so you're either a city government, you could be a council of governments, could be under the county commissioners, and so forth. Does the PSAP have an interlocal agreement with other counties or cities? Yes or no? And if there are yes, then tell us about the agreement. One thing to remember is you can't leave anything blank within this document. So you cannot have, you've got to put something in these blanks. So unknown, yes, no, whatever it may be, put something in there. What type of calls does the PSAP answer? Do you answer primary landline wireless? Do you answer everything? Do you only answer landline calls? Are you a secondary PSAP? Does your PSAP operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and et cetera? Now, the staffing numbers is a new section for this year.
Hello?
I lost sound.
I do too.
Hey, Tommy, this is Marty. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Marty.
Yeah, I think they've got something wrong on their end.
Oh, I lost you. Am I back?
You're back.
Yep.
Sorry about that. So staffing numbers, I'm not sure where I left you off at. We need to know how many full-time call takers that you have that were budgeted for as of July 1st of 2018. So how many dispatchers were you allowed to hire full-time as of July 1st, 2018? The next question is, how many were fully trained and working on their own at the time you filled the report out? So if you were authorized for 8 full-time dispatchers and 2 part-time dispatchers, then 8 would go here, because that's what you're authorized for. 2 would go here under the part-time, and then at the time of the report, I only have 6 full-time dispatchers because I got 2 vacancies, or I got 2 people in training, and I've got 1 part-time that's fully released and working on their own. So here would be 6, and this would be 1. Then we ask how many supervisors does a PSAP have on staff? If supervisors were included in the count above, do not count them here. So if they're a working supervisor, you can either put them here or you can put them here. I would prefer that you put them, any working supervisors that work in the console and answer calls, if you want them to be included in supervisor-related training, because they're an active supervisor, I need them to go here and not up here under full-time. And then the last question directly is the FCC, relates to the FCC, and it has to do with please provide the total number of active telecommunicators, also known as call taker or dispatcher, in your jurisdiction that were funded through the collection of 911 or E911 fees. If in your budget you have 8 full-time dispatchers and 2 part-time dispatchers, but yet you only pay for 10% of the overall employee cost out of 911 fees and the rest is done by general fund money, then 1 to 2 of your dispatchers are funded out of the 911 fee. So I'm going to break real quick and see if you have any questions related to that section. Okay. All right. Clear as mud. Types of 911 calls the PSAP can answer, basic, enhanced, so forth. 911 equipment. Who is the PSAP's 911 call-taking equipment vendor? So who is your call-taking equipment vendor? Is it Motorola, AT&T hosted? Who is the vendor? Who do you deal with? What brand is the PSAP's call-taking equipment? CallWorks, Motorola CallWorks, Viper, something like that. We are asking for what did you have at the end of, as of June 30th, 2018, what did you have in place? If you are replacing that, then you can certainly type in that you have AT&T Viper or whatever, but planning to replace. So this is an open field format. So you can add that in there if you want. We're just trying to get a snapshot of what you have as of the time at the end of as of June 30th, 2018. Let's see, when was it last updated? What version are you on? When was it last updated? What version you on is very important. Please do your due diligence to ask your vendor, what is my current version? Because that may make or break us as it relates to next generation 911. When was the last time the equipment was updated? What is the number of 911 call taking positions? Now this is the full positions with mapping at each position. The next question is, what is the number of limited 911 call taking positions? This would include dark positions or positions that can only answer voice but do not have full capabilities such as mapping. So if you have a phone that's got glorified caller ID that you can answer a 911 call on, that number would go here. If you have dark positions that are not currently active, unless you have to call the vendor or something like that, that number will go here. This is the one you currently have active. At any time anyone can come down and sit down and answer calls with mapping. This one is anything else. The next one is a new a new question that we have for you. It's open field. Yeah, I think there's, I don't remember how many characters are in there, but there's quite a few. You may run out though. 400 characters. What we're asking for, and this is kind of twofold. Number one, it's education. And for you to get an opportunity to self-reflect and think, what is my disaster plan? But if you had to evacuate your 911 center immediately, then tell us what's going to happen. Who have you partnered with to transfer your calls to, and how will you do that, and what's the process? So we explain it to us. Let us know how that will work. The next one is, where is the 911 software for the PSAP hosted? If it's not hosted, then it's NA, not applicable. If it is hosted, tell us where it's hosted. Is it hosted at a centralized server? And if so, where is that? Is it hosted? What vendor is used for the PSAP recording software? What version is the PSAP recording software? Do call takers use protocols? And if you answer yes, then what protocols are they? So tell us what you use. Use police protocols, EMS protocols. Just tell us what you're using as it relates to that. Call data. This is from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. That's the first thing I want you to make sure and make note of. List all 911 calls received. That's all, okay? This is the total number of 911 calls. List all the landline, list the wireless, list anything that falls into the other category. List the total of 911 hang-ups or abandons. List the total number of telematics, if you have telematics. So this telematics pretty rare in Oklahoma, I think. But this has to do with things like vehicles and transportation sensors, different things like that could potentially call 911. In the future, we'll be getting more of these. If you guys follow me on Facebook, you'll see that I've posted questions out there related to the Apple Watch calling 911. It comes in currently as a voice call, but I think it can fall under telematics at some point in the future, different devices. And I could go on about that, but that's more of a next-gen 911 discussion. So add the totals of the second through the sixth question in section F. They should equal the first question in section F. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 through 6 should equal this number right here. Okay? If it doesn't equal that number, then you've made a mistake, because you should be able to break everything down here. We've had a lot of questions already about, well, my system doesn't break all that stuff out. It just doesn't do it. If you do not, and that's absolutely possible with certain 911 vendors, especially if you have older equipment. Please take an extra effort to call your 911 vendor and then ask them if you can get that data. If you're hosted by AT&T in the state of Oklahoma, you should have access to ECATs. Call Johnny Irons and ask him. If you're a hosted AT&T agency, or you have hosted AT&T for your 911 equipment, AT&T has told me that's ECATs as part of that program. So you should be able to pick the phone up and call them. They should be able to help you through that. Or call a neighbor that does it, and maybe they have a canned report that you can use. So please make the extra effort to make that happen. Next section is list the total number of text to 911 messages, or text to 911 calls. Total number of 911 calls that were transferred. This again is very important. As we move into next generation 911, or as we try to start putting in processes to ensure that wireless 911 calls are routed correctly, we need to know, are we doing a good job or not? One way to tell that is if calls are being transferred or not being transferred. If they're routed to the wrong place and you're transferring those 911 calls hundreds of times a year, we need to try to work on cleaning that up. So we need to get some statistics in front of us as it relates to that. Administrative or 7-digit lines, how many incoming, how many outgoing? And if you'd like to receive confirmation email, then you put your email down here. So this is the last thing as it relates to this form. If you do not have, or you don't know how many administrative 911 or administrative or 7-digit calls that you have, then just put in there unknown, UNK, unknown, something like that, and that'll be fine. If you have it, that will absolutely help us as we start trying to help you with legislative changes or trying to seek money and helping people write policy. We need to know how busy you are. Any questions over form number 2? All right. Part 3. The financial form has been revamped for this year, and even up until right before this meeting, we were having discussions as it related to this. So what we did is we looked at last year's data that we received in, and it was not very good. So we went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out how do we ask for a financial statement that you could walk in and hand to your financial person, whoever your finance person is, and say, hey, I need you to fill this out. So with that, we went and looked at several of the various 911 authorities or 911 trusts that were around the state that have to report in to the state auditor's office, and we looked at what they filled out, and we looked at categories. I got a couple of other people's budgets on what they budget for each year, and we tried to account, at least group things in for you to be able to better understand, what we're asking for and make it a little bit easier than maybe it was last year. So with that said, the new report, can you see that, Stacy? Okay. Name of the person who's filling it out. Total revenue for 911 landlines. 911 landline revenue comes directly to your PSAP or to an authority or to somewhere locally. It comes in locally. There's not a state report that we can give you to tell you what your 911 landline revenue is. So you have to that's all done locally. The total revenue for 911 wireless, that information for the entire year that we're requesting, which is this July 1st to June 30th, for that entire year, can be found on the Oklahoma Tax Commission, their website. So you can go to their website. If you go to our fact sheet, there's a website there, and it'll tell you exactly how to get to the report. So you can pull it up, you can put your agency in, and it will tell you exactly how much you brought in every month during that reporting period. So, packets. Yeah, it's also in our packets, so you can go to our website. You can see the packets that we email out. So the packets that you received during that time, we give that report out every month. Even though you have that, you should be able, your accountant should be able to break this out for you. And if they can't break this out for you, then probably need to make some changes locally to the way that you're receiving in money. Total revenue from dedicated PSAP taxes or fees. So this is a dedicated tax or fee that is set aside specifically for the public safety answering point. And so I'm going to give a shout out to Lynette Coppage and all the work that she's done in Johnston County. In 2018, they passed a half-penny sales tax in the entire county of Johnston County, and they are bringing that half-penny sales tax in to fund their 911 center as an independent agency or independent authority or trust or department within the county. So they have a dedicated half-penny sales tax coming in for their PSAP. Well, that's where this goes. If you have $1 on every water bill that goes to your PSAP, well, that's where this would go. It's a dedicated PSAP tax or fee. Total revenue from contracted services. If you provide dispatch services for another entity and you receive funding for that, then you would put that money here. I have knowledge about Norman. I know that Norman charges MSTAT EMS to provide dispatch services to MSTAT EMS. So MSTAT EMS cuts a monthly check to them every month, and it goes into their 911 account or their dispatch account, and so that's where that contracted services would go. Rogers County, which is the Northeastern 911 extravator, whatever, the awesome people up there. Rogers County contracts with Claremore, so Claremore pays them money, and so that's where the Claremore check would go, is under contracted services. Total revenue from local appropriations. This was missed by almost everybody out there last year. In order to run your 911 center, I can promise you that someone locally is taking money out of a general fund account and supplementing your dispatch center with money. So you need to be able to show or be able to report what is that general fund money. After I bring in my contract services, I bring in my fees, I bring in any taxes that are specific to my PSAP, you know, there's got to be something to make up the rest of it. We don't run on credit. People still want their paychecks. So we need to know, what are those general fund revenue dollars? How much are they paying in to keep you going? Revenue from other sources, this is a catch-all. And then total revenue. Well, total revenue means total revenue. We need you to add those things up and tell us what your total revenue is. Any questions as it relates to revenue? All right.
Yeah, Lance.
Yes.
On that last part where you were talking about the additional funding with or assistance, even though it's not monetary, if they pay for dispatcher salaries, other agencies to cover your dispatch center, is that what you're referring to? I need to get that amount from those other agencies?
Yeah, if they're paying you money to pay for something, then we need to know what that is. So,
well, they're not paying me money, but they're paying for the dispatcher salaries that are taking the calls.
Yeah. So you would need to get that number from them. So Cherokee County, for instance, they have a 911 dispatch center, but they have 3 dispatchers on duty at a time. But I believe each of the 3 dispatchers are funded by individual agencies. So They pay for that warm body to sit in that seat. Well, we need to know what that is. So you would put that under this local appropriation is probably the best place for that to go, because somebody's paying for that.
Okay, thank you. That answers.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Moving on to expenses. So this is your total cost for personnel. So just like the last question, you know, I pay for 2 dispatchers, but the county pays for 1 dispatcher. Well, we need to know what your total cost is for all 3 positions, or all 3 people. So I need the total cost for personnel. And that includes technical personnel, that includes anybody that's on your payroll that is used to run the 911 center. Okay? 911 fees, and then each of these expenditures will we'll ask you to fill this out as a dollar figure. Then we're going to ask you to check yes or no. If any portion of 911 fees were used to fund the total cost of personnel, any portion of it, you would click yes. Obviously, if you click yes for here, then back on Form 2, where it says, did you use 911 fees to pay for any dispatchers, you need to have something in that box. So yes, only thing I need to hear is yes, and then if it's dispatcher related, it would go over on the other form as how many positions do you fund. Total cost of the building. So the total cost for the building, how much does it cost for your structure? There was a ton of questions last year about, well, we don't have a building. We don't, you know, somebody provides that, you know, in kind for us. In order for us to compare apples to apples, it's nice to know what does it cost for your portion of that building. Piece of advice I gave last year is that you probably have a electric bill and a gas bill and all that stuff, and you have a certain square footage that you occupy within that building. So what percentage of square footage do you have of the building? So therefore, that's the percentage that you would have as it relates to the building costs. Again, the idea behind this is we want to be able to capture all the costs as it relates to this so we can report it back out to our legislators and get them to understand that it costs money to do this job. It's not free. Did you use any portion of this funding for any portion of the building costs? Did the 911 fees pay for any of it? I'm not going to cover that second question. It's going to be in every one of these. So again, 911 fee used any portion of this? But yes. Total cost of office supplies, pretty self-explanatory. Total cost for telephone, telecommunications. We gave you a little cheat sheet out there. Administrative phones, MSAG, Phase 2, database circuits, network, hardware, software, RMS, internet. This is record management. Anything related to your telephone system or telecommunications system, which is why we threw internet in there, we need to know what that is. Last year we asked you to break out, you know, your MSAG costs and your circuit costs and your network costs and all that. We asked you what type of network you had, yada yada. We took that away because it's just too confusing. Oklahoma is made up of islands as it relates to 911, and everybody does something a little bit different. So we tried to help out in this to say, you know, we're just going to give you one spot, put in the cost of what it costs for all of these different items. It's kind of a catch-all for your telephone and telecommunications system, so that's what we're asking for. Total cost for 911 call-taking equipment. This is your actual call-taking equipment, maintenance, and warranty. So what did it cost you that year for the call-taking equipment, maintenance, and warranty? Total cost for computer-aided dispatch. Total cost for radio equipment used in the PSAP. I don't know if Russell Anderson's on or not, but we don't need to know that his radio system costs $15 million and that includes all of his radios and all that stuff. I need to know, what does it cost to run the PSAP radio equipment? What did it cost you to do that? So it's within the walls of the PSAP. That's not repeater costs and all that. It's your base stations or your radio consoles, including maintenance. If you have maintenance, you can put that in there too for your radio consoles. Total cost for accounting and auditing and legal experts or legal expenses. So this is if you have outside costs related to accounting or auditing or legal expenses, you'll put that there. Total cost for dues and subscriptions. Total cost for travel and meetings. Total cost for training. 911 fees, total cost for internet expenses. Uh-oh, we have internet expenses in two different places. So that's your first trick question. You can put it in either place. We have internet expenses up top. You have them here also, so obviously put them in either place. Total cost for vehicle expenses. Total cost for other expenses. This is going to be your catch-all where you're going to put everything. Now we need to know, what is your total expenses? This is a place that you can kind of verify with your budget or with your closeout of your budget from last year, and you can verify what were my total expenses. Does all this stuff add up? And obviously, do your due diligence to add up what you told us. Make sure it matches this. Capital outlay total. So if you had one-time expenditures throughout the year that were reported, how much did you spend out? So if you bought new 911 equipment from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, how much was that capital item? Add them together. So if you bought a radio console, you know, you bought, heck, dispatch chairs are capital items. You know, bought 3 new dispatch chairs and a new toning system, you know, then that will go in there. Okay? And that's it for the financials. If you want it, if you want a confirmation, you can put your email address in here, and then whatever, when you send it to us, it will actually send you back what we get. So you'll get a confirmation email back with the information in it. So with that said, I'll entertain any questions that you might have. So before we conclude this, I want to make sure that there's been some confusion as it relates to who should fill this form out. And I actually, this is my fault. I've given 2 different answers. If you receive Oklahoma Tax Commission money from the Oklahoma Tax Commission for wireless, prepaid wireless or voice over IP, then we need a report from you. We need all 3 reports from you, and you are responsible for it. I gave an answer to Osage County that it would be 2 forms, one from the 911 trust and one from the Osage County Dispatch Center. Those need to be combined into 1 form, and I'll make sure to clarify that with Osage County. We're trying to get a full picture and capture of what it costs to do business. And we don't want to double report things. And so after reviewing and looking at what we're asking you to do, we saw that there was a lot of room for error if we let everybody fill a form out that's involved with 911. So it's 1 report per public agency that receives Oklahoma Tax Commission money. So our fact sheet is being updated with that information, and that'll be posted out as soon as possible. If you go to the fact sheet, this is the question I'm going to be fixing, which is this example A, B, and C. We're going to fix this to say that it's 1 form per public agency. The rest of this is information that you can use. So what happens if I do not fill out the registration form? Well, you can go over there to our transparency page on our website, and you can go to Administrative Code 145-15-2 or -7-2B, and you will see that the authority will take action to escrow your funds if you don't fill it out. You can go to this website. You can go to Public Reports, Deposit Letters, 911 fee, and that's where you get your wireless fee money that the Tax Commission gave you, and so forth. You guys can read through these at your leisure, and if you have questions, please resort back to this. The governing body, these are the people that we're looking for to fill out a form. So these are the ones that are responsible to fill out a form.
Lance,
and go ahead. Yes.
this is Warren Wilson with Enid. We take tax revenue from Major County for infrastructure and for the 911 equipment, essentially, but we don't do anything with their dispatchers and so forth. Am I reporting their funds for them, or are they reporting their funds to themselves?
You receipt in their funds, is that correct? It comes directly to you.
Well, they send us 90% of what they take in for tax revenue for that. That's where my question comes in. Are we going to send 2 different forms? Because they still have 10% that we don't account for.
Who actually gets the check from the Tax Commission?
Major County gets the check from the Tax Commission, and they send the check to us.
Okay, they'll need to fill out a form.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Yep, they'll need to fill out a form.
Okay, I will get that taken care of. Thank you.
All right.
Lance,
Yes.
it's Randy Hasley, Tillman County.
Hey, Randy. Good to see you.
Yeah, on the back to these expenses where we're in the Tillman County Jail Authority building, and how are we are we gonna use our best guesstimate on these expenses, like, your air conditioning, your electrical, your phones? It all comes into one hub and it's goes to different departments.
Yeah, and of course, I've been down there and saw your facility. You were gone on vacation, lucky sucker.
Yeah, enjoyed it too.
Good for you. When I was down there, you've got the two two workstations there, and you got kind of a long, skinny area. Obviously, that's a very small percentage of the footprint, but you also have an equipment room that's on the other side of that bay, where your 911 equipment's held at.
That's correct.
I would consider that area being yours also. So you would take the square footage of that, and this is how I would do it. And, we're just trying to get our best guesstimate. So your answer is yes, we're trying to get a best guesstimate of what it costs for you to be able to occupy that space.
Okay.
So
All right.
square footage and all of your costs related to maintaining that building, and you take the percentage of that square footage and apply it to it and fill that number in.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Good to see you, Randy. I can still see you, by the way.
Oh, well, I've tried not to make any bad faces here.
That's all right. Yeah, I saw you roll your eyes already. All right. Well, what else do we have?
Hey, Lance, this is Kay from Osage County.
Yeah, that was for you. You heard what I said about you, and I apologize for misleading you.
Yes, that's fine. I was kind of questioning that myself, but
Okay.
I do have a question, though.
Okay.
Like our access lines and our towers and stuff, would that just all fall under radio equipment?
We, if it relates to radio towers themselves, that doesn't fall within the walls of the PSAP, so we're not asking for that money, or asking for that cost. If your radio consoles are connected to the tower via a data connection, then I would consider that part of the cost. So I would include the connectivity from your console out as part, because you have to have that. But I wouldn't consider actually the repeaters.
Okay.
So we're trying to stay within the walls of the PSAP is what we're trying to do. So.
Okay. That was kind of what I was wanting to know, because.
Yeah, we at this point, well, I don't really want to. That's what we're asking for within the walls of the PSAP. So we'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay.
Thanks, Kay. Appreciate it. So, anything else?
Lance, this is Debbie, Caddo County.
Hey,
So
Debbie.
I do get Argos money, and we furnish their equipment. They have 4 dispatchers. Do I count their 4 dispatchers?
Yes.
Okay, but I do include them with us.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they're actually an answering point in Anadarko. So they are so to clarify for everyone else, the Caddo County has servers, and they have 911 equipment at the Caddo County 911 Center. They also provide 911 equipment and full answering stations for Anadarko as of today. That's going to change in the future. But the city still has the full ability to answer 911 calls that happens in the city limits. They have dispatchers that they pay in order to do that. And so we need to include those costs as it relates to Caddo County's overall cost to provide service.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Tommy, do you have any closing comments as part of the committee and with helping work with this?
I think, Lance, just a couple of things. I think it's very important to spend the time to break the financial data out. The call data, I think, came in much better last year than the financial data did. It's really important, and I don't know how to express this enough. What we really need to see is a total, true financial picture of what it takes to operate 911 in Oklahoma. We don't need numbers doubled up. We don't need numbers missing. We need to actually be able to get the true picture to see what it costs. And if we can't do that, then I think we're going to be restricted on how we can go to the legislature in the future and get additional monies that we need.
It's not a question we will be restricted. with going to ask for money. They'll tear us apart if we get the same thing we got last year. So I appreciate those.
I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call that went through the 4 or 5 years that we worked on trying to get the legislation that we finally got passed. And every year we were asked, why can't you show us what it costs to operate, and why can't you show us how much income you have? So we know we're going to face that again.
I appreciate it, Tommy. I agree with that. So, all right, Daryl Maggard, are you on the call? You have to unmute Daryl. He may have dropped off. All right, well, I think that's it. I'll go ahead and ask if there's any other board members, any other authority members that are active authority members on our board. If you're on the call, do you have any closing remarks? All right. Good. That means nobody's listened to me. I can just, I got away with one. That's awesome. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate it. We are going to be, this recorded webinar will be posted on our website. It'll be right there on the main page. It's another line item. So you can come back to it and review it at a later time if you need to. I appreciate it.